Jeff, welcome to the Leanpub launch video for Behind the PowerShell Pipeline, discovering what you didn't know you needed to know. Thank you very much for being here with us today. I was just wondering if you could take a moment to talk a little bit about yourself, about who you are and your professional background, and about what your book is about and who it's for.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Jeff Hicks. I am one of the kind of original, at this point, PowerShell experts. I wrote with Don Jones, like some of the very first books on PowerShell. I work today as a independent author, teacher, consultant. I speak at conferences. But really, my job is trying to educate people on the benefits of using PowerShell and how it can make their jobs easier. And as I said, I've been doing and writing about PowerShell since 2006. There's probably only a handful of people who are still around, who are still writing and teaching about PowerShell for as long as I have. And I've written some other PowerShell books, and some of them are up on Leanpub. But over the last couple of years, I've started thinking more about PowerShell from what I call the human or squishy perspective, especially now with the advent of AI and coming in and say, hey, how do I write I need a PowerShell code that will do X. Well, fine. Yes, AI can generate that. There are lots of books and courses to figure out what syntax do I need to do something. However, what that won't teach you is why you should do it or how you should implement that feature. Because the thing that a lot of people don't take into account is that when you run a PowerShell command, it's not just running in a vacuum. It is running in an ecosystem, in an environment, or PowerShell is just part of what you are trying to use to manage your environment. And people are running these commands. And they may say, no, I want to run your command that you have written, but I'm going to import data from, say, Active Directory. And I want to be able to easily, get AD computer, pipe it into my command, and then export it out to something else. Okay, if that's what I want to do, how does that change the way that I might design my command? I have to think about what is the input? What will make this as seamless and as effortlessly useful to the user? And what are they likely to do with that output? And this is just like one example of the kind of what I call the squishy bit. Because the technical part about what you type, the syntax, that's easy to discover these days. But trying to understand what's the best way that I can write this command that a person is going to use to do their job. And so a lot of the book, this new book, the Behind the PowerShell Pipeline, is pulling some information I have from a premium newsletter where I cover a lot of this. And over the last couple of years, and I've gone through and taken some of what I think are the really critical essays I've written before and revised them, expanded, combined things, and turned them into a book so that people who haven't read the newsletter can still benefit and say, hey, okay, Jeff has been doing PowerShell for a really long time. I know that I've taught a lot of people in the PowerShell community. This is just one of the last things that I think I need to teach them before I can decide, okay, I'm going to go sit by the lake, drink wine, and do crossword puzzles and let someone else take over. So yes, Lake's like the culmination of my almost, 20-year career in PowerShell.
Yeah, that's really great description of the book. It's a really great book. And thanks for mentioning your newsletter as well. I was going to mention it myself at the end, but it's got the same title as the book, Behind the PowerShell Pipeline. And so people who are interested can subscribe there and find a lot more content than you would find in the book itself. But you've used the word teach a few times in your description. And I know that you use that word very specifically because you talk about it in the book, how you distinguish between teaching and training. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit for a moment about that very important distinction.
Sure, because it's very important. A lot of people think that they can be trained on something. To me, training implies a certain routine that you have to follow in order to achieve a certain result. And the example I've used in the book is that way back early in my career, I took a training class on how to install NT Server. 4.0. You had to follow a specific order of events. Get the right disk, put it in, answer these questions the right way in order to install that. So you had to be trained on how to do that. PowerShell is not like that. I can't train you on how to use PowerShell because it is a wide open management engine. Maybe in PowerShell 1, I could have trained you because there are only a couple hundred commandlets. Now there are thousands and thousands of commands from Microsoft and vendors and the community. So I can't do that. You can't train yourself on PowerShell. You have to teach yourself. And what I try to, like when I teach public classes or private classes for companies, is I want to teach you, it's the proverbial teach you how to fish sort of thing, because when I'm done with teaching you in class, I have to teach you enough so that when I'm gone and you have a new situation, you know how to use PowerShell, how to discover commands, how to read the help, how the pipeline works, how to assemble things so that you can teach yourself and get your job done. Once you understand the basics in PowerShell, it doesn't matter whether you're managing Hyper-V or VMware or SharePoint or SQL or Azure, it's still the same fundamental language. I'm going to get some type of object, I'm going to manipulate it in some way, and maybe do something with the output. Doesn't matter what it is, but you have to be able to understand the fundamentals. So I always focus on trying to make sure people understand why things are the way they are, and not just say, type this and you'll get the result that you want. Because that's training. Training is something we do for, we're training kids to go to the bathroom. We're training dogs to, go outside. We're training, animals to perform certain tricks. We don't do that with people. I want to teach you to use PowerShell, in my particular case, to get your job done, to get ahead, and go home at the end of the day and know that everything's going to be there when you come back in the morning.
That's great. That actually reminds me of kind of an analogy I like to use for like sort of real sort of learning as opposed to training, which is the sort of image. This might be a bit dated now, but like Geordie LaForge on an alien deck or bridge of an alien ship, right? He doesn't read the language. It's a completely different culture, but he knows there's going to be propulsion. He knows there's going to be weapons. He knows there's going to be life support. He knows there's going to be all these things because those are the functions that are required to sort of run a ship.
Yeah.
So knowing that he can switch from the deck of the or the bridge of the Enterprise to the bridge of an alien ship and sort of carry out the mission, understanding, what he needs to do there. The last question I want to ask you about your book is you're publishing it in progress. I think it's currently marked at 60% done as we record. Yep. And I was just wondering if you have a plan for the rest of it that's all set out. Like I'm going to be publishing one chapter a month or one chapter.
Oh, no, I'm trying to crank it out. I would love to get it finished by the end of February of this month. I have like about another 6 chapters that are ready to be released. I just did another release, over the weekend. But I'm trying to push to get this through. So right now I have what I'm calling early bird pricing because it's still in work. And then once it's finished, then it'll go to whatever I think the normal pricing will be.
Well, great. Thanks for sharing that. The book is Behind the PowerShell Pipeline, Discovering What You Didn't Know You Needed to Know. Thank you very much, Jeff, for being on this video. And thank you very much for using Leanpub over the years for your books.
Great. Thank you very much.